I love that. I will be honest. I also like to kind of see Travis Hunter because I feel like it's been a while since I seen him. So shout out to him. But anyways,
Oh,
welcome everyone back to my 32 fan series where I'm talking to one fan from all 32 NFL teams. Obviously, this episode is about the Jacksonville Jaguars. But before I get started, all of the information that you need to get from Travis will be in the description. So you can click on the link. You can find him. I will also add him as a collaborator if he wants to be added as a collaborator. So just pop up on his channel. And then the other thing is, too, is we are here to discuss these Jaguars because I'm curious about some of the things that are going on. So I'm really excited for this conversation. So if you want to just start with telling us a little bit about you, a little bit about your background, how long you've been a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, and just let us know how you're feeling overall about this team.
all right. Well, I mean, I can't say born and raised, but absolutely raised Jacksonville Jaguars fan. Obviously, the team just popped on to the NFL market in 1995. I'm a little bit older than that. I mean, I know you can't tell because, black don't crack, but
Yeah,
yeah.
period.
1995, Jacksonville Jaguars showed up, and I was officially a fan of the team from that moment moving forward. Before that, I would probably consider myself a Dallas Cowboys fan because they were actually good. That was like the last time they were good is when I was in elementary school.
So
So
you're the
that
reason they're not good right now
I
because
would
you
own that
jumped
with a badge of
fandom.
honor.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, so then from that point moving forward, I was a fan of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then in my adulthood, I was able to become a beat writer for BigCat Country, covering the Jaguars. So that helped out tremendously in that fandom that I happen to have. Is now I can actually cover the guys and
Mhm.
still try my best to be objective and looking at the whole NFL landscape and still reviewing the team that I grew up loving, but also being able to kind of tell people when, hey man, y'all tripping.
Yeah.
From both sides of the lines, from the media and also the fan base. I can actually have those conversations in a different way than most guys in the media. So I love it.
I love it. Yeah. Well, how are you feeling being a Jacksonville Jaguars fan? I am on the bandwagon that I feel like your head coach got robbed of coach of the year, but that's just my opinion. But overall, how are you feeling about the team and what's going on?
He did get robbed from the coach of the year. I mean, if you want to get into the Diana Rossini conversation with Mike Variable, we could have that conversation, but I'll try to stay out of that housewives of the NFL drama when possible. But the fact that she did get a vote kind of could potentially change the conversation, at least just by
Mhm.
2 votes, and he
Yep.
lost by 3. So that
Mhm.
makes it a very curious conversation that the NFL, I'm sure, would prefer not to have.
Ever.
Because
Because they were
yeah,
just acting like this ain't even happening. They're like, nothing's going on. What's the problem? What are y'all talking about?
yeah. Yeah, so that changes the conversation just a little bit. It's like the police investigating themselves. Nothing happened here, man. We
Yeah.
good. Let's move it on. Yeah,
Yep.
what's happening
Everything's
over here
fine.
to the right? But
Mhm.
overall, I'm feeling good about the state of the team because you feel good about the state of the quarterback and the head coach. And if you want to add the defensive coordinator, Anthony Campanelli, into that conversation, again, that makes you feel generally good about any NFL team.
Yeah.
Now there is still a conversation and or a question to be had about the general manager, and it's not to say that I have that conversation, but I think the vast majority of the fan base and even the NFL market in general may have questions about, is this guy truly as good as the Les Snead, as the Brad Holmes, as those guys from that Rams regime, or is
Okay.
this a situation where it's fool's goal and maybe too early, too soon for the young general manager? And I think these are rightful questions that should be asked, and he's going to have to earn it by W's and L's on the field.
Mhm.
Um, but as it currently stands, that result. The Jacksonville Jaguars 2026 NFL draft resulted in the whole consensus board argument that kind of just went out throughout the NFL that week following the draft, and it made it for some very interesting conversations. So I feel good
Yeah.
about the team
Okay.
overall
Okay.
because I feel good about the fact that they're going, no matter who they line up on that field, the head coach, the defensive coordinator, the special teams coordinator, all those guys are going to find a way to get the most out of the guys who are being placed into that locker room. But there still
Right.
are questions about the guys that are being placed in that locker room.
Yeah.
So it's a long-term conversation versus a 2026 conversation. 2026, I still feel good. What is it going to be when you have to replace the guys like a Travis Etienne, like a Devin Lloyd who left? That's a general manager long-term
Mhm.
conversation that I'm not sure I'm ready to answer just yet.
Fair. Awesome.
If you like the content that you're getting, don't forget to hit that like button. Leave us a comment in the comment section below, and I'll let you get back to your video.
Fair. Awesome. So the draft happens. What is one word you would use to describe your draft class this year?
Oh, drunk with all like it. Oof. And I don't just, and it stinks because I don't only mean that for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, it was simply this draft this year was simply all over the place. Like, Jacksonville took the brunt of the jokes, as I kind of talked about with the whole consensus board argument, or the conversation, I guess, between everyone. But there were multiple like really questionable valuation picks this year that kind of like popped off that whole consensus board argument. Like, when you start getting into the end of the second round to that whole fourth round range, you start seeing a lot of guys who in the, the big consensus boards, the industry consensus boards that were going like 160 and 180 end up being drafted in the early third round. And we're like, yo, what, wait, what is happening? Like, it started with Nate broke to Jacksonville Jaguars second round pick at pick 56. Nate, I can almost say his last name right. Borkshire. Goodness
Close
gracious.
enough.
Yes. And it started with him, but then you had a lot of guys who, like, the cornerback from Washington, Takario Davis, ends up going like round pick 80. And I'm like, okay. Kalen Black ends up going at 90 to San Francisco. And I'm like, and I love Kalen Black. I was banging the drums from that guy when they were talking about him as a 7th round pick. But when you told me he went at pick 90, I'm like, oh, okay, this is a different draft. So it was a drunk draft class for the Jaguars in a drunken landscape across the NFL, from my opinion, on this class. It wasn't a deep one. It wasn't a great one.
Okay. Is there anybody, like, is there a day 2 or a day 3 pick that you feel like is going to end up being a steal once it's all said and done?
Prospect X. From if you saw the ESPN series, Prospect X, Zach Durfee, the defensive end from Washington, and the Jaguars ended up getting him in round 7. I've seen the tape. I've seen all the interviews. It's so much positive out there about this young man, to the point where I was like, this is too much. I'm not going to lie to you. It was so much positive. And I don't think I've ever said that about an NFL prospect. Like, it's like if you had an undrafted free agent, then all of a sudden Michael, like in basketball, that Michael Jordan just came out and said, this guy's the next LeBron. And you'd be like, wait, what?
Who?
It's that, because Bill Belichick has come out talking about how good this kid was, or how he could truly have it. In the Prospect X article, Jet Fish says this is the best guy on the field whenever I played. Troy Fasano told his agent a year ago that he needs to keep an eye out for this guy, that he's the next guy that his agent, that he later signed him as a client. Like, it's like, wait a minute. Everybody's saying that this guy, he just continues getting injured every year. So that's his big thing, is if he can stay healthy, he could be the guy at defensive end. It's like, oh, okay. So for 7th round pick, Zach Durfee, I'll take it. I will look out for you on the field. Let's say that.
Yeah, give me that flyer. Okay.
That's good.
Who's the one player from the draft class that you think will make the biggest impact this year, or the most immediate impact this year?
Oh, I mean, it's hard to go against Emmanuel Pregnon, the guard out of Oregon, just because he's a
surprised he
fought
run game.
Yeah, he was the best one on the board. I mean, he was the best option on the board. Obviously, like you say, like, he fell. Folks were originally talking about him going early day, 2. You're talking in the 30s to 40s. They get him at 88. All right, well, I guess I'll take that. Bless you, Lord. Well, appreciate you. So yeah, we're gonna do that. But, and the fact that they have Patrick McCarry, who played at right guard last year, who was injured all throughout the year. I mean, talking early in camp, you don't know how he's going to come back. You'll see, but wherever that lands, so now you at minimum have competition for him. At worst, you have another guy who allows you to actually move guys in the run game, where the Jaguars struggled the second half of the season.
Okay. Is there... Yeah, the Jaguars. What an interesting season. Is there a player on your team that you feel like you've passed on multiple times, or that you just passed on 1 or 2 times, that you were thinking, that's the guy, go get him? Like, stop passing on this guy. And then he went somewhere else and you think it's going to come back to haunt you?
See, I think I might have got this cycle. Because there was one guy whose name just continued coming up around the Jaguars, and I know I'm not talking about Jadarian Price in that report that was happened before the draft, but the other half of that report with Emmett Johnson, the running back out of Nebraska.
Okay.
I really liked his game, and I already talked about I like Caleb Black, but again, he went way earlier than I expected with San Francisco being drunk themselves. But those were my two mid-round guys who I really enjoyed watching their game. So I'm like, all right, he's still on the board. All right, he's still on the board. Oh man, we're in the fifth round. He is still on the board.
Yeah,
and we just kept picking other guys, and I'm like, the Jaguars picked at 119 Wesley Williams as their defensive end, and they do have an absolute need for it, but he wasn't the guy I thought they would pick. I thought they would pick someone who was more of a designated pass rusher type of defensive end, where it seems like what the Jaguars are looking for these past few years is they're looking for a guy who's going to be more balanced and able to kind of push the pocket a little bit better, like those old Georgia Bulldog defenses. They don't necessarily want the defensive guys who may be limited and only can rush the passer. If you can't do both, they don't seem to want you, which is why you have Travon Walker, guy who's very good with speed, the power, mostly power. And you have Josh Hines-Allen, again, a guy who's good with power, but they don't seem to care about the whole designated pass rusher style. So they pick him at 119, and I'm just like, Emmett Johnson still on the board, and he ends up going to 161 to freaking Kansas City. So that's when I think it could be regret. Could be a regret, especially if Kansas City comes back, because if you see that guy flying high and scoring touchdowns and everything else, then I'm just like, what could have been?
Right. Yeah, great. Here we go. So I know last year, I didn't prepare for this, but I know you'll have an answer. I know last year the draft was kind of a stunner because as soon as it started, you basically were trading draft picks and getting Travis Hunter. So that kind of whatever. Was there anything this draft going into it, now coming out of it, that you were like, I didn't see that one coming? Or did anything surprise you this year?
Yeah, the whole draft. All of it. I ain't gonna lie to you. All of it is they addressed the positions I thought that they would address going in.
Okay.
It's how they addressed them and with whom they addressed them and at what valuations they addressed them. That threw me for a loop. I mean, we had 4 podcasts because that's how many the fan base thought was necessary, because we on the Duval Dive podcast, we listen to the fan base, we talk to the fan base, we go to Discords, we go to the Twitter Spaces, all the above, to have conversations to find out what are the folks talking about. And that's how long that they were talking about it, to the point where it's like, the consensus board conversation, who are these guys that they pit conversations, why did they go with this style of guy versus the style we all thought we needed type of conversation. So the biggest piece is the Jaguars fan base were all across the board pretty much come to a consensus in saying the Jaguars needed a better 3 technique pass rushing defensive tackle option. Eric Armstead is good, but he fell off at the end of last season after the bye week. We need to make sure we have someone else that is there that is able to kind of hold that mantle in case he can't, or in case you need to move off of him or if he gets injured.
Right.
They didn't address that really at all. They did draft Albert Regis out of Texas A&M, but pass rushing generally isn't his strength. He's more of a run stopper. That's a huge surprise if you're in the Duval Devout fan base. It's like, oh wait, you were already first in the league at stopping the run. We had Devon Hamilton and Eric Armstead being able to do that no matter what. Where's the pass rush option? And that's the piece that is just everyone trying to figure out what it is they really want versus what it is we all think they need.
Okay. Did you call them the devout Duval?
Duval Devout. That's what we do. That's what we call them on the Duval Dive. The Duval Devout.
Okay.
The voting of Duval.
I love it. Okay, fair enough. So let's look at the team for a second here. So last year, obviously, great season. Didn't end the way you wanted it to, but definitely on an upswing, definitely on an uptick.
Yeah.
What would success look like this year?
Ooh. Is playoffs a bust? That's the floor. That has to be the floor. And I can easily say division championship, really, if you want to get into the minutia of it. But with that Houston Texans defense, the Texans are actually making smart moves, which I hate to say. They actually are making smart moves to at least to improve their offensive line, which is their biggest crutch. They improved that running back. The Colts likely are going to be at least some sort of a pest, just as long as they're not injury prone like they were at the end of last year. that's to me says together as a combined item, it's just going to be a little bit difficult to kind of repeat for the crown. So just getting to the playoffs, most folks probably won't be very angry with this season, but the real goal is obviously a postseason run, maybe a win or two, hopefully getting hot at the right time and kind of be able to make some real noise in the playoffs, maybe even Super Bowl, dare to dream.
Yeah. Okay. I was curious to know if you were going to go like Super Bowl, get to the Super Bowl. I was wondering how where you thought you all were right now, but playoffs 100% makes sense. And then sounds like you're like, we need to make a playoff run. If we make a playoff run, then maybe next year you'll say Super Bowl or bust.
Well, I mean, it's a hard thing to say straight up Super Bowl, because everybody say that. Cool. But also everybody like drunk about their team. And I try my best not to be the guy who's a homer for a fan base wearing those teal sunglasses. This is not that. I'm trying my best to be objective while also owning multiple shirts. This team makes me drink shirts. Like, I'm well aware of the dichotomy of all of this. I think that I believe in the coaching staff. I will say that enough to think that they could potentially be a Super Bowl team, but also saying that I don't know that necessarily the roster's there if you're talking about the trenches, because that issue of what I thought they needed as far as defensive tackle, what we just talked about, the issue of whether or not I think they've invested enough in the trenches on the offensive side to actually have a real running game like they didn't have the end of last season. Does Emmanuel Pregnon actually resolve that, or maybe a healthy Patrick McCarry solve that run game issue? That feels like that feels like a lot to put on one person. So because of that, I don't know that they're necessarily there when we know for sure that Houston Texans defense has gotten better.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, okay. Which position group worries you the most at this point?
We're talking. If you're talking immediately, I'm going to say outside cornerback, and that's mainly because of the injuries. You got Jordan Lewis coming off of surgery this past offseason, foot surgery this offseason. You've got Travis Hunter coming off of his LCL surgery. And that's not to say I'm worried that they're going to be, injury prone or anything along those lines. I've seen the videos of those guys working out. I've been to the stadium twice, seen these like that. They seem fine, but I also do know that conditioning for football and conditioning for conditioning's sake are not the same thing. And when we are talking week 1 of the season, are you going to be the normal guy I'm used to seeing, Mr. Jordan Lewis, as far as nearly all pro level and playing in the slot? Are you going to be the Travis Hunter I'm used to being able to play 110 snaps on a Sunday and not even being bent over? Are you going to be that guy, or will you need some ability to kind of get into the groove of things? That's why that makes that my immediate concern. But if you're talking over the whole scope of the season, I'm probably going with the linebacker, and that's mainly just because of the inexperience. You move on from Devin Lloyd, you don't really replace him. You draft Parker Hughes in the 7th round as a developmental possibility. Maybe that's a coin flip. It's a shot in the dark at that point. You got Ventrell Miller, who they seem to believe in. They didn't bring anyone in to take the reins from Devin Lloyd, so they seem to believe in him, and he was the co-starter with Devin Lloyd in week 1 of last season. Many people forget that. So at that point, they didn't know Devin Lloyd was going to be all pro Devin Lloyd either. So maybe they do believe in Ventrell Miller, but even his backup, Jack Kaiser, for the most part, reasonably unproven. He's drafted last year. We haven't seen much from him. That we just don't know what that is. So obviously, after having an all-pro linebacker leave the building, one that won you multiple games, actually, you're probably going to have some concern when they didn't seem to replace him, and it's just a concern of the unknown.
Okay. That's actually valid. The immediate concern versus the long-term concern, not really knowing where the plan is. So, okay. What has this team improved the most on from last season? What are you looking at when you're looking at this team, when you're looking at this roster, and you're like, you know what? They've at least shored up like this thing that we really struggled with last season.
Well, I mean, it's easily the tight end room. I mean, the fact that the Jaguars drafted 2 in their first 6 picks, I'm sorry, in this one. They moved on from Johnny Munt last season as their second string tight end. They end up going on a really rough stretch of games when they lost Brenton Strange to injury last season. You knew they wanted to run more 12 and 13 personnel after they got bullied in that Seattle Seahawks and Rams games in week 6 and 7 last season, when the Rams and the Seahawks both ran a boatload. I mean, I'm talking like 30% of their snaps were 13 personnel with multiple tight ends on the field. You knew then at the middle point of last season that this year Jacksonville will make an investment in that tight end room. And they did. They drafted with their first pick, much to the chagrin of the consensus board media people, Nate Broekature. Goodness gracious, there he is. Nate Broekature, Texas A&M. Goodness, in the second round, and then they ended up going with Tanner Coastal out of Houston as their pass catching option, who can block, whereas Nate's a little bit more of a dominant blocker who hasn't had the ability to kind of show that he can catch the ball frequently because his quarterback at A&M was terrible. So
well, thank you for saying it. People say when I say it, they're like, it's because you're a Texas fan. I'm like, no, it's because I don't think it's very good right now.
No, he was just, I mean, in where I'm from, we call him flicked. He just can't hit people when they wide open. Like that's not it.
That's not the strong suit of his game.
So people will say like Nate Broekature, he had a high drop rate because he had a 5% drop rate. And I'm like, this dude had 22 targets on the year. A 5% drop rate means he had one drop. That's not a drop problem. That's just a statistical anomaly at this point. Like, I don't know if he does or doesn't have one, but nevertheless, they brought two of these guys in when they know they struggled as far as their backup tight ends and their multi tight end sets. Now they can add those two guys to Quentin Morris and Hunter Long, who was the only other remaining tight end from last year. They can battle it out for that fourth spot. But for me, it feels like they have a situation where a reasonably good tight end, maybe Hunter Long, might not make this roster because that's just how much of a challenge these rookies are going to bring in.
Okay. I like it. I don't know if anybody has said tight end just yet. So that's cool. I think there's a couple of teams that might, but I love it. Anytime I hear the first something, I'm like, ooh, I like it. Is there
another one? Yeah.
No, I stay there. No, I like it. I like it because I feel like we don't talk about tight ends until we talk about tight ends, right? Like it's just expected, like everyone's going to have a tight end. And most of the time people that talk about them are guys that have young quarterbacks. And so they mention the tight end for that reason, because that's usually their safety blanket. But a lot of times just in conversation, you just don't hear tight ends really talked about a lot. So I appreciate it. I like it.
Defenses are getting smaller these days. And last season was one of the top seasons we've seen as of yet, at least, where teams are playing a lot more cover two, or maybe not even cover two, but two high safety looks on first down. They're begging you to run the ball, and they're saying, hey, no, we know we're lighter. We know we're having this third safety on the field instead of having a third linebacker on the field. This has religiously been happening basically since COVID, since the 2020 season. And now the NFL offenses are kind of going the opposite way and saying, okay, cool. If you're going to keep putting these Nick Emanwaris on the field, like these 228-pound, third safeties that are almost the same size of light linebackers, cool. Yep. I'm going to put these doggone 3 tight end sets on the field, and I'm going to run you out of this, or be happy with these 8-yard, 10-yard tight end, throws. It's a chess match. And I think that's just the way the NFL is going, because they're not having as much success going against these two, these two high safety looks. So I think it's an interesting little, back and forth between the OCs and the DCs.
Yep. The game within the game. We love to see it. What is this team going to do better than most teams in the NFL?
I think when we talked about this last year, I'm pretty sure I said that they were going to run the ball and stop the run like some old school 1980s head coach. And I was kind of right. To be real, to be clear, I was kind of right. If you stop the clock at the bye week, I would have been really right, because the Jaguars would have been like,
you would have nailed it.
Running the ball,
you would have nailed it.
Top 5, stopping the run, we were good. But then the bye week happened, and I was like, that run game fell off a cliff. So I'm thinking still stopping the run. Eric Armstead is still back. Devon Hamilton is still back. The whole front four is basically the same, and they've only added Albert Regis. Again, his strength was stopping the run. I think they're going to still be top 2, top 1, stopping the run in 2026 until I see otherwise. So I think that's a reasonable bet to make.
All right. So let's get into the fun round. So, fun round, you can answer this however you want to. Some people just give their answer, some people give their answer and give their reason. So, it's totally up to you. And we're going to start with the first one. So, quarterback confidence, 1 being, please get this guy out of here ASAP. And 5 being, this is our guy. He can stay as long as he wants to stay.
Oh, can I do 4.5?
You can.
I mean, I don't want to do 5 because 5 means you are already elite. You are already there.
True.
We don't have to have much of a conversation, but I can. I'm definitely easily at 4 for Trevor Lawrence, especially with him and Liam Coen being connected. But yeah, I'll
Okay.
probably say 4.5, or we're there. But you got some stuff to show me still, as far as we got to start completing these deep balls down the field. That's the only thing I think they're truly missing.
Okay, that's fair. So, coaching staff trust level from 1 to 5.
Oh, that's a 5. I mean, that's a 5. Not just the head coach, but we're talking the staff. Anthony Campanelli deserves a freaking defensive coordinator of the year conversation from last year, and they got him back this year. Yeah, that's easily a 5. You add Heath Farwell, the special teams coordinator, with Cam Little, a Pro Bowl punter and an All-Pro long snapper. Yeah, you're talking a 5.
Okay. Who do you think will carry the team this year? You think it's going to be offense or defense?
I'm supposed to say offense. I'm even leaning offense, but no, I gotta say defense. It's gotta.
Okay.
If the no, let me say it in this way. All right, I can answer this in 2 different ways. Who do I think will carry the team? Offense.
Okay.
Who do I need? Who do I believe needs to be the person to carry this team, or the side to carry this team needs to be the defense?
Okay.
And Campanelli's defense got the ball back to the Jacksonville Jaguars so many times last season, being second in the league in turnovers, and that helped the Jaguars' point differential so much because that's what allowed them all those additional opportunities to get those points and to have those starting possessions happen on the other side of the opposing 50. If you don't have those, you don't have that. If that makes sense, A plus B equals C. So for the most part,
at least that's what they say. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, it's 1 + 2 = 3. Is that it? All right. So it needs to be the defense. They need to continue this habit of collecting these turnovers or increase the amount of sacks that they're going to get. Otherwise, I think it's going to be very difficult for this team to continue trying to outscore teams on offense.
Okay. If you could trade drafts with any other team, they get all of your draft picks, you get all of their draft picks. Who would you trade drafts with?
Man, thank you for asking this question. I appreciate this. No, this is a good one because I watch a lot of film, and that a lot of the guys in draft times, if you have your favorite team and 99.9% of these guys don't land on your team, then you're just like, oh man, I love this guy, and I gotta root for him to fail on this other team that they play against us twice a year or whatever it is, and it's just like, nah. So even without their first pick, I take the Raiders draft class, for real. They're just looking rounds 2 through 5, not even talking about the quarterback. Trading Stoops, safety out of Arizona, in the 2nd round, and I was like, yo, pick 30, because I loved him. I told JP Acosta on our podcast the week before the draft, I think he's going to be the best safety in this draft class, and he told me that was a hot take, and I'm like, I don't care. I've seen his tape. That dude is going to be the guy, and I don't care what nobody's telling me. They got what was it? Kieran Crawford out of Auburn in the 3rd. Jermont McCoy, they took a chance on him in the 4th round. We'll see what happens with his injury situation and whether or not he's going to need that second surgery, what that's going to look like. But you get him in the 1st pick of the 4th round, I'm like, yeah, that's a great chance to take. Mike Washington Jr., the running back out of Arkansas, in the 4th, and then Hezekiah Massis, who everyone in the analytics community loves him because he's smaller, but he gets his hand on the ball. Just ball production is insane. I'm a former defensive back. You just heard me name 3 DBs that I all love. Yeah, that's gonna have my ears perked up all day. So yeah, the Raiders for sure. They caught my attention.
Okay. If there was a this always happens to us moment, so what is the thing when the Jacksonville Jaguars are playing, you're like, everything's going great, and then here comes this thing where you're like, oh gosh, here we go with this. What is that for you all?
I can't even say it's like this one thing that happens in the season. I'm gonna do it year by year. Just having a good season just to crumble the following year. Like this always happened for the Jacksonville Jaguars fan base for the Duval Devout. When was the last time? You remember the Jaguars were good this year and good the next year. It was 1998. 1998 to 1999. That I don't even remember what grade I was in at this point, but that's what we're talking about. It's been 27 years was the last time they had back-to-back playoff seasons. So I'm hoping that's the change this season. They went to the playoffs last year. I need to see you build on that this season and not just crumble and beat every other Jacksonville Jaguars team, including 2022.
Good one. Very good one. Okay. And then my final question is, if there's a message that you would send to the team owner, or you can send it to the GM, or you can send it to anybody if you want to, honestly, what would be your message? What would you say to the people that are either in charge of the team or a part of the team?
Well, I actually see these guys. So that's an interesting. I was in the elevator with Shad Khan like a month ago. So honestly, just let them work. Just let them make sure the checks keep cashing.
You're doing great.
Yeah. Just keep cashing.
Keep going.
Make sure that just is still working and the checks will cash, and let's see what happens. But no, I think you're doing all right. Just don't screw it up.
Okay. Well, let me change the question then. If you could get in the huddle on the field at the very beginning of the season, game 1, and the offense is about to run out in the field, what would you tell the offense?
Oh, what would I tell the offense?
Yeah. Like, what would be your your thing that you would say as they're running out?
All right. I mean, y'all know what this is. Y'all don't worked all this offseason. You know the respect ain't coming. You know this national media ain't watching the games. They out there talking about you. They don't like you. They don't like your mama. They don't like none of y'all. And it's your job to prove them wrong and make them have to come out on Monday and talk about nothing but you. Go out there and get this W, man. Y'all know what it is. Come on.
I love it. See, there it is. I love that. And then I wouldn't be me if I didn't ask you, Travis Hunter. Yeah. I know there's been a lot of talks in the news. There's been all of these other things. What are your expectations? You don't have to tell me anything that you've heard exclusively behind the scenes. I just want your opinion on what you think he is going to do this season. Sure. As far as playing on the offense, defense.
Yeah, he's going to play primarily on defense at cornerback because they've made sure that was a clear statement by what they didn't bring in this offseason. Okay. The fact is they didn't bring in another corner after losing Greg Newsome and trading away Tyson Campbell. That made it very clear. Yeah, this is Travis Hunter. This is your role for sure. Okay. 90%, 100%, whatever the percentage of the snaps on defense, and then we're going to use you still on packages on offense. So they originally brought him in saying we want him to be closer to what it was at Colorado. I still believe that is the long-term end goal. I think by the end of all of this, by the end of this rookie contract, they're going to want him to be playing like 80% of snaps on both sides of the ball. I truly still feel that that's where they are overall. Okay. But he's returning from injury, returning from surgery. There's going to be some ramp up period. There's going to be a little bit of trying to play that by ear. So it's going to be primarily cornerback early on with packages at receiver on a week by week basis. So there may be 1 week where he plays 40% of the snaps. There may be another week where you don't see him on offense, just offensively. And then there may be another week where you don't see him play at all on offense because they ran more 13 personnel with these 3 tight ends, beautiful tight ends that they now have. It's going to be a
big, beautiful tight ends.
Yeah, big, beautiful tight ends. That sounds off. Wait, pause. Nah. I ain't say that. All right, cool. The position, y'all know what this is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, blame it on me. But seriously, that's all that I have for you. Is there anything that you want to share? And let me say this first of all, thank you for coming on. I appreciate any time I get to talk to you about Jacksonville. I appreciate chasing you around and finding you and being like, hey, it's me again. So that's always fun because once we are able to connect, it's always a great time. So I appreciate that. And then also, like I said at the beginning of this, I'll leave all your information in the description. We'll collaborate on this if that's what you want to do. And then, yeah, we're good to go. I just appreciate you. And I appreciate the honesty that you bring. And I appreciate the attention to detail when you're kind of looking at your team and you're like, man, we really, okay. Well, all right. We'll see what happens here. So I just appreciate that because I think that that's real. So thank you for that. And then we'll end on you, whatever you say, however you want to close this out. You know, y'all have the Duval.
Yeah,
So
Duval
you can
devout. You
take us
got it.
out because of that. So I just believe in you that you can take care of this.
I mean, yeah, like everybody knows what it is. Like whether or not they're going to be successful is going to come down to what those guys do. The coaching staff does as far as development is concerned. If you are concerned about the Jacksonville Jaguars draft class, you have the right to be. It makes total sense that you do. But we will say this: we have not seen a coaching staff probably since Tom Coughlin's stint in Jacksonville, where we actually were really talking about development of these young guys. So I'm willing to give them the space and give them the time to either prove that they are who they say they are, or prove us right in saying that they're not who they sold themselves to be. Whatever is going to happen is going to basically be the result of those wins and losses on the field. So in the meantime, no games have been played. I'm just vibing, and I do hope that y'all do too. So Duval, y'all know what it is. Like, sorry, let me do it right. Duval, y'all know what it is. But also, BigCatCountry.com and hit me up, Travis D. Holmes. Y'all, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you.